everyone. This is B.Maheswaran, Assistant Professor, Department of Environmental Science, V.H.N.S.N.C, Virudhunagar. So in this video lecture, we are going to deal about bioremediation. Right, so starts with the slide introduction. So bioremediation is the process of reduction, elimination, alteration, transformation of contaminant present in the natural environment like sediments, soil, water through the applications of microorganisms like fungi, green plants or their derived enzymes. So bioremediation is a waste management technique that uses naturally occurring biological organisms to break down the hazardous waste into less toxic or to become a non-toxic form. So bioremediation, which includes a series of redox reactions for the production of energy within microbial cells for cell maintenance and their surveillance and also the reproduction. So bioremediation is a global, regional and local applications for removing pollutant from the environment, restoring the contaminant sites. So bioremediation is economically safe and also it's a cost-effective method. So it gives a permanent solution to the contaminated sites. So some environment affected or contaminated with the xenobiotic compounds. So those contaminated sites also treated by these bioremediation or biological solution method. So at least 6 times cheaper than incineration and 3 times cheaper than confinement processes. So bioremediation is the cheapest source. So what is the objective of this bioremediation is to at least reduce pollutant level to undetectable or non-toxic or acceptable levels, that is to within a limit set by regulatory agencies, or ideally to completely mineralize organopollutant to carbon dioxide. So here pollutant will be converted into carbon dioxide. So organopollutants which is converted or transformed or liberated to carbon dioxide. So what is the principle behind the process is which relies on stimulating the growth of certain microbes that use contaminants like oil, solvents, pesticides as a source of carbon, food source. Actually mainly carbon as a food source for the microorganisms for their growth surveillance. So these microbes consume these kind of contaminants, converting them into smaller amounts of water and harmless gases like carbon dioxide. So you know carbon dioxide is a harmless gas, right? So these microbes able to degrade or able to convert pollutant or organopollutant to small range of CO2 or non-toxic form. So effective bioremediation which independently needs a combination of the right temperature, nutrition and food, otherwise it may take much longer for the cleanup process. So bioremediation which only relies on the microorganisms and their derivatives, right? So microbes required for their growth, that is temperature. So it's we at least give a right temperature, pH, moisture conditions and nutrition supplementations, which are all important requirement for the growth of microbes as well as the production of metabolites or enzymes from the microbial source. So if conditions are not available or not suitable or not favorable for the bioremediation, they can improve by adding some other amendments to the environment. So amendments such as molasses, vegetable oils, or simply we can give a air molecule to that of contaminated sites, right? So in case of defectable or detector, we may give a molasses, vegetable oils or simply air. So air also a substance for the growth of microorganisms, you well know, right? So these amendments which create optimum temperatures or optimum pH or optimum nutrition levels for the growth of microbes to flourish and complete the bioremediation process. The bioremediation process which can take anywhere from a few months to several years. So bioremediation process, it's not definitely the particular days, because the level of contaminants which only the decide or what kind of microbes we are using in the bioremediation process. That's the mainly important thing. So bioremediation which can take anywhere from a few months to several years. So amount of time which required depends on the variables. I already said, such as size of the contaminated area, the concentration of contaminants, conditions such as temperature, soil density, soil porosity, microbial growthness, and weather pattern of the contaminated sites. So these are all the factors or requirements to degrade organic pollutants. Right? Okay. So these figures reveals the truth. So nutrients, so we give the nutrient substances to that to the contaminated soil or contaminated site. So these contaminated site, we put down the microorganisms. So usually microorganisms absorb the contaminants as a carbon source, nitrogen source, and it's finally converted into non-toxic or less toxic end product. So this is the mechanism of bioremediation process, overall mechanism of bioremediation process. Right. So what are the factors? So factors affecting bioremediations. So monitoring of soil physically and chemically is a time consuming process. In order to measure the pollution of soil after the contamination in a shorter period of time, microbial and biochemical properties of the soil are to be determined. So first we need to determine microbial and biochemical properties of the soil, which are the important one or important factor to decide the bioremediation processes. The bioremediation process depends upon the different factors for the removal of the contaminants. Some of them enlisted here. So concentration of the contaminant, nutrient availability, surfactant, enhancer of bioavailability, so characteristics of the contaminated soil, so which also include pH, temperature, oxygen availability of the at the particular site. So concentration of the contaminant which directly affect the microbial activity. So the microbial action or activity which can directly influence by the concentration of the contaminant, right? So lower the concentration of the contaminant, there will be the decreasing rate of degrading enzyme produced by the bacterial in the soil or in the polluted sites. So toxic effects are absorbed in the presence of higher concentration of contaminants. The decomposition rate of catabolic enzymes can be increased by the significant interactions between the different components of the contaminants. So there be interactions or interactions between the microbial cells and the contaminant sites. So organopollutant, so pollutant which may be conducted by the or affected by the microbial cells, because these polluted contaminant act as a food energy source for the consumption of microbes for their growth. Right. So second one is nutrient availability. So carbon source, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So these are all the basic requirements for the growth of microorganisms. The concentration of the nutrient availability affect the bioremediation of the contaminant. So the excessive presence of nitrogen in case of potassium or else phosphorus shows the negative impact on the degradation of hydrocarbons. So we take we cure or we rectify the hydrocarbon pollution. So we need the excessive amount of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium. So these are all the additional requirements to do the bioremediation process. So third one is surfactant, enhancer of bioavailability. So mostly chemical and food grade surfactant are used to increase the bioremediation process. So hydrophobic organic contaminant which only by means of surfactant. So surfactant which can easily help out the elimination or removal of contaminants, pollutant from the particular polluted sites. So twin 80 and SDS, these are all the petroleum derived chemical surfactant used in bioremediation process. So mainly twin 80 and SDS. So these two petroleum derived product which helps in the bioremediation process. So basically it's a surfactant. Right. So besides these surfactants produced by the microbes are also used for the reduction of environmental contaminant also. Right. So characteristics of contaminated soil. Bioremediation process is significantly affected by different parameters of the contaminated soil such as pH, temperature, oxygen, water holding capacity, or etc. And also texture of the soil, contaminated soil. So first one is pH. So optimum pH, which only the requirement for the growth of microorganisms to degrade the organopollutant. So basically pH should be 6 to 8. So we can choose the optimum pH 6 to 8. So neutral pH, which is the suitable for the degradation of petroleum based or non-petroleum based product, whereas some fungi and acidophilic microorganisms degrade contaminant in an acidic environment alone. So we may provide the acidic environment to those of fungi. It's really remove the organopollutant and contaminant. Right. So second one is temperature. The degradation of contaminant is also affected by the temperature, especially in the case of hydrocarbons under both in situ and ex situ conditions. So whereas in situ, ex situ conditions, temperature is the only determinant to degrade the degrading capacity or degrading period of the contaminant. So it has been found that a higher temperature, nearly 30 degree to 40 degrees centigrade, which increases the bioremediation in the soil as well as the marine environment. So third one is oxygen availability. So oxygen availability is the very important factor to determine the extent rate of biodegradation of contaminant. So aerobic biodegradation is much faster than anaerobic biodegradation. So we give air into that of particular contaminated sites, then only we may get a acute action of acute remediation of contaminants. So what are the advantages by means of bioremediation is it can be done on site. So where the pollutant it occur, we may treat or we may give the resolution to that of particular site. So minimum site disruption is caused. So minimal level of site disruption only caused during the bioremediation process. So eliminates transportation cost and liabilities. So there is no liabilities, there is no transportation cost at all, because of we may take the contaminant part at the particular contaminated sites. So where the action is needed, we may go to that of particular site and may put a particular choice of microorganisms and we may proceed the bioremediation processes. So there is no transportation cost at all, so which eliminates long-term liabilities. Okay. Often less expensive, so it's a main thing. So it's a less expensive, so we proceed a bioremediation process. It's a green approach, so we can easily treat the contaminated site, none other chemical treatments. So what are the disadvantages of this bioremediation is, so extensive monitoring which is required for during the bioremediation process. So right the time to start till the end, so we must monitor or we must extra care or extra attentive to that of contaminated site. So each site has specific requirements. So potential production of toxic unknown substrate are possible to produce because of we are using microorganisms at a particular environment. So hydrocarbons, polylactic acids, so these are all the pollutant. Microorganisms utilized all those pollutant as a carbon source, nitrogen source, and spread or increased vigorously. So after that it may produce metabolites, so some other subproduct. So the possible toxic product may also be arise from the bioremediation process. So strong scientific support is needed because of the choosing of microorganisms is dramatically trouble. So only we choose a right candidate, potent candidate to the removal of organic pollutant. So organopollutant. So the choice of microorganisms is dependently it's a scientific one. So scientific report, based on the scientific support, we may choose or we may undertake in the bioremediation process. Okay, thank you.